Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to ask Robin Tilbrook to say a few words now. I can see him grabbing his pocket saying, oh, God. Robin is one of the vice presidents of the Traditional Britain Group. He's a solicitor. He's probably well known to you as the chairman of the English Democrats party. That's right, isn't it? English Democrats. Yeah. And he's going to tell you what he's been up to. Robin.
Ladies and gentlemen, I hadn't realised I was going to be asked to say anything at all, so I haven't prepared anything. And of course, you listened to some fantastic speeches, and speeches that are really very wide-ranging in their views and in their perspective on the world. I did mention to Gregory that I was interested in talking about something that I'm working on at the moment. To put it into some sort of overall concept, in England we've got increasing prevalence of Islamic influence and Islamist influence. I've been involved in bringing a judicial review to trying to force the government to do an inquiry into the child rape gangs that we have operating in virtually every major town and city in the country. I also brought a case to try and showcase that actually the various many hundreds of thousands of girls that have been raped and pimped across the country, where their perpetrators have been convicted and they own property, and many of them do own property, the perpetrators, because they made huge amounts of money out of their pimping gangs, that these people can be sued. But at the moment, I'm one of those people who tries to think what we could do that might make a difference, rather than concentrating on things that are virtually impossible to do. So just to give you an example of something that's virtually impossible to do at the moment in this country, Rupert Lowe brought a debate in Parliament, the MP for Great Yarmouth, who was in Reform but fell out with Nigel Farage. He brought a debate in Parliament calling for the banning of halal slaughter. And halal slaughter is horrific. If you've actually seen images of it or have unfortunately come across it actually happening, the animal is forced to face towards Mecca. It then has an Islamic prayer prayed over it, and its throat is cut, and it is then left to bleed out. And if you think, for instance, of, say, a cow, you're probably talking about something like 4 minutes of consciousness after that happens, in which the animal knows that it's dying, is aware of what's happened to it, feels the pain of it, and, of course, is unable to do anything about it. Now, one of the things that you might think is that in a country that's traditionally been a Christian country and notionally has the Church of England as the established church, and a monarch that is supposed to be the supreme governor of the Church of England, you might think that there would be very little halal in this country. You would be completely wrong. In fact, the person I've been working with, which is Catherine Blakelock, who's been doing a lot of research on this issue, in fact, it turns out that a very large proportion of the meat that is available in our supermarkets and in many of our shops is halal or is religious slaughter. And I raise that different expression, and I'll explain why in a minute. So, for instance, in checking in the various supermarkets, she and other helpers have compiled statistics on what proportion of meat is halal slaughter, religious slaughter. And the answer is, for instance, we're talking about lamb, something in excess of 70%. 70%. If you are a scriptural Christian, you will recognise that eating halal is a breach of your of Christian principle. Interestingly, one of the groups who are getting very interested in helping to challenge this situation is actually the Sikhs, for whom it is a mortal sin to eat halal meat. But why is it, in a country which has traditionally prided itself on its love for animals, its concern for pets, the vast numbers of people who belong to organisations like the RSPCA, the RSPB, all sorts of other organisations which supposedly care for animals, why is it that this situation has been allowed to develop? And the answer is, in effect, another example of two-tier policing. Because the law is that all animals that are being slaughtered should be slaughtered in a prescribed way, which is quite detailed in its prescription as to how that should happen, and that they are to be slaughtered in such a way that it's as humane as possible, there's as little pain as possible. The animal is to be stunned at a very early stage, and there are also rules on hygiene and on how the meat is to be prepared. All these rules are being ignored. Now, how did this come about? Well, the answer is that there is an exemption to all those rules for religious slaughter. And the two religious slaughters where there is an exemption are Jewish religious slaughter, and in Jewish religious slaughter, the animal is conscious and has its throat cut as well. There isn't a prayer over the animal, so the animal. So it isn't something that's particularly humane, for sure. But it's not actually the Jewish religious slaughter that's being used and exploited to create a situation where 70% of our meat would be slaughtered according to religious rules. It's the halal slaughter that's being exploited. And our exemption says, and this is an exemption that was first introduced into the law in the 1930s and has been reaffirmed on a number of occasions in subsequent legislation. The exemption is that animals can be slaughtered according to the Muslim method by Muslims for the food for Muslims. And that last bit is the important point, because this exemption should only be used for food for Muslims, not for, and Muslims are said, according to official statistics at any rate, to only be about 6% of the population. So only about 6% of the meat should be halal. Of course, the key issue comes back to money, because in fact, if you follow all the rules, slaughter is relatively expensive. If you don't follow any of the rules, it is very cheap, and there are, as a result, several businessmen who've unscrupulous businessmen who have made huge fortunes out of converting or abusing the process. So how can we do something about this? It seems to me we're not going to get anywhere by trying to ban halal, and I think Rupert Lowe adequately demonstrated that because he was the only vote for it. But we can actually do something about it because it turns out that the people who are required to enforce the law are local government. Local government are required to have an inspectorate, or wherever any local government has a slaughterhouse in their area, they're required to have an inspectorate, and that inspectorate should be enforcing the requirement for any meat that is not being slaughtered for Muslims should be slaughtered according to all the required rules of humane slaughter. And so what we're trying to do is to raise the money to bring a judicial review against a slaughterhouse inspectorate in the local government, in a relevant local government. We're thinking that what we'll do is, this will obviously be, the first case will be a test case, and it just so happens that one of the biggest slaughterhouses that are abusing this exemption and providing meat for non-Muslims is in the Test Valley. So we're thinking that we're going to bring a case against the Test Valley Local Authority to force their inspectors to properly enforce the law. And of course, the other thing that's happening is that meat then appears in supermarkets. It's also appearing, by the way, in virtually all state entities of one sort or another which provide food, whether it be prisons, schools, universities, even the army. Where all the people that are eating in those facilities are being now fed halal meat. So Test Valley has a very big slaughterhouse that is doing this, and then the fact is that there's then in the supermarkets meat being sold, and if you go to any of your supermarkets, you'll see they've got all sorts of talk about humane treatment for the animal and what a lovely life it's had. You would imagine the lamb sort of skipping across the sunlit uplands, but what they fail to mention is that animal was killed by having its throat cut, facing towards Mecca with a prayer that it has to be conscious to hear, and that it's been killed in a cruel manner. So the fact is, we can do something about that as well, because that is a failure of labelling, and interestingly, again, it's the local authority that's responsible for enforcing labelling through trading standards. So we don't have to pick on the deepest pocket of all, i.e. the central state. All we need to do is to have a go at a local authority. We should be able to get a ruling that the law should be enforced. The courts have been reasonably good at doing that, where it's absolutely crystal clear as here. We should be able to get an order forcing, in this case, the Test Valley local authority, inspectorate of the slaughterhouse to do a proper job and to enforce the law, and also the Test Valley's trading standards to enforce proper labelling, explaining how the animal's been killed, rather than bogus claims of a lovely life. We have got an appeal that we've raised or set up with the site GoFundMe. We've so far raised something like £30,000. we probably need to raise something like £50,000 to be able to bring these to judicial reviews. Could I just mention the name of the GoFundMe? It's called Judicial Review on Religious Slaughter. Donate to bring JR legal case to restrict halal slaughter. It's on GoFundMe. It's also on Catherine Blakelock's Twitter account and also mine. It may not be as grandiose an idea as you might wish, but it is a little something that we could do to make what could actually be a really major difference, bearing in mind 70% of the meat. You have a look. It's actually a widespread abuse.